97, Evering Road, Hackney. It's October 29th, 1967, 12:30 in the morning. Inside that basement flat, the air is it's thick, you know. It smells of stale party beer, cheap cigarettes, and this cold, crawling dread. Jack McVitie, they called him the Hat, right? Because the man was never seen without it. He walks in, he's expecting a celebration. He thinks he's among friends, but he finds a trap. Reginald Kray is standing there, and the archives say his face was just a mask of sweating anxiety. He's not the cool twin right now. He raises a pistol to McVitie's head. He pulls the trigger. Click. Nothing. He pulls it again. Click. The mechanical failure. It echoes like a thunderclap in that silent room. But Ronnie Kray is right there. He's watching through those rimless spectacles, and his eyes, they've got this terrifying light in them. He starts screaming. He's urging his brother to do him. Their cousin, Ronnie Hart, throws a bear hug around McVitie, pinning him. Reggie drops the useless gun, and he reaches for a carving knife. This isn't a clean hit. This isn't what you see in the movies. It's butchery. Reggie plunges the steel into the face, the stomach, the neck, twisting the blade, driving it home until the floor is slick. The Hat is gone. He's a ghost. This was the moment the swinging 60s died in the dirt. This was the moment the wall of silence began to bleed. The Descent, Fort Valence and the Tower. I'm unsealing the darkest records of the Old Bailey. You're listening to the Old Bailey Archives. London, January 1969. It's actually the mildest start to a year in a decade, according to the weather records. The mercury's hitting about 5.5 degrees, but, well, inside court number 1, the air is strictly sub-zero. See, by the time we get to 69, the East End is a landscape of Fort Valence and protection records. But inside these walls, the medical macabre is about to begin. Let's look at a background here. The twins, they were born in Oxton, 1933, born into a world where the law was, well, how do I put this, a hostile stranger. Their dad, Charlie Sr., he was a rag and bone man, a fugitive. He spent 15 years, dodging the call-up during the war. And then you've got their mother, Violet. She was a Bethnal Green celebrity just for keeping them alive. High infant mortality, diphtheria, it was a rough era. There was this unnatural emotional closeness between them. Ronnie later said, and I'm quoting the file here, "We had our mother and we had each other, so we never needed no one else." By the time they reached the dock at the Bailey, they'd done it all. They were professional boxers who never lost a fight as amateurs. They were deserters from the Royal Fusiliers. I mean, they punched out corporals and threw latrine buckets over sergeants. They were actually among the last prisoners ever held in the Tower of London. Think about that. A medieval end for two boys who thought they were the new kings of the East End. They moved from the grime and Mile End snooker clubs to the neon glitz of Esmeralda's barn in Knightsbridge. They're socialising with Sinatra, Judy Garland, are being photographed by David Bailey. Ronnie, he genuinely believed they were, fucking untouchable. But that wall of silence, it was brittle. It wasn't built on loyalty, guys, no. It was a calculus of fear. The Bailey was a theatre back then. The gallery, packed. You've got silver blonde bouffants, electric blue suits. The Krays' father sitting there, neat and silent. But look at the jurors. They are terrified. There are 60 plainclothes coppers following those jurors into the pubs, following them home. They were given a direct emergency line to Scotland Yard. And in the middle of it all is Detective Chief Superintendent Leonard Nipper Reid. His eyes are just hollow. He's been hunting these two for years. He's wearing a plum-coloured murder squad tie. It's this exclusive silk badge worn by only 10 men in the world. He's the architect of this downfall, and he's just waiting. Now, we get to the evidence, the medical macabre. The prosecution, led by Sir Lionel Thompson, brings out the first artefact. It's a suitcase. Now, to you and me, it's just a neat hide attaché case, city banker style. But the archive files, CRIM 1-4988, reveal a nightmare. Inside, there's a series of clips, springs, a hidden cord that swings a hypodermic needle through a tiny hole in the side of the case. The target, a victim's leg in a crowded street. The payload, hydrogen cyanide. The police analyst, John McVitie, he's got this gritty Scots accent. He explains it to the jury using a wooden model. He tells them they'd even tested it on animals to make sure it was lethal. Then comes the mahogany crossbow. It's got telescopic sights, steel-tipped arrows meant for deer, bought at Lillywhite's in Piccadilly. The experts testify it could cause a multiple hemorrhage in a human at 50 yards. This wasn't cant or street slang violence. This was, well, it was industrialised assassination. And then, Professor Francis Camps, the pathologist, he walks in wearing a large red carnation in his lapel. He's patient. He talks to the jury like they're, not very bright fourth formers. He explains the chemistry of poison. He says the clue is in the way they die. Let's talk about George Cornell, March 1966. Cornell was a Richardson gang member. He's in the Blind Beggar pub in Whitechapel, a place once owned by Bobby Moore, by the way. He's drinking a light ale. Ronnie Kray walks in. He's wearing those rimless glasses. He's calm as a priest. Cornell smiles and says, "Well, just look who's here." Ronnie doesn't say a word. He takes out a 9mm Luger and shoots Cornell once, right in the forehead. The bullet, it passes straight through the brain. Ronnie later wrote in his memoir, "I felt fucking marvellous." He said he replayed it in his mind millions of times. But look at the site reports from the Public Record Office. They were released in 2000. Ronnie had been fighting schizophrenia for 16 years. Without his 25 milligrams of Stemetil, taken 3 times a day, he was very depressed and suspicious. He thought everyone was out to injure him. And Reggie, the charming one, he's on Valium for pressure on the forehead. He's washing it down with a bottle of gin a night. He's haunted by a suicide of his wife, Frances Shay. Their defence is just flat denials. They call the witnesses crooks, but the witnesses are their own men. Men like Thomas Cooper. He's sneering at the lawyers. He's talking about contracts and organisations. The barristers, they have to keep using the word murder because the witnesses won't. The wall of silence didn't break because of the police, really. It broke because the twins got too unstable. Their own men realised it was safer to be a grass than to wait for Ronnie's next whim or Reggie's next drunken rage. There was no body for Jack McVitie, just testimony. They say he was wrapped in an eiderdown, bound with chicken wire and dumped in the English Channel near Newhaven. And don't forget Frank Mitchell, the Mad Axe Man. They broke him out of Dartmoor in '66, but he was difficult to control. He vanished. The archive note just says 4 injections in the nut. No body, just silence. The verdict. The world freezes over. March 3rd, 1969. The jury's been out for nearly 7 hours. Outside the Old Bailey, the weather has turned, well, savage. Blizzards, ice storms. A few weeks later, the massive TV mast at Emily Moore actually collapsed under the weight of the ice. The world was literally freezing over. The defendants are brought in one by one. Ronald Kray hears the verdict impassively. John Barry, guilty. Reginald Kray, guilty. But Christopher Lambriano, he breaks. As the word guilty rings out, he spins on his heel, tries to run out the back of the dock. The prison officers have to shove him back to face the judge. Mr. Justice Melford Stevenson. He was a man of, let's say, succinct judicial style. He looks at the twins, he doesn't mince words. He says, In my view, society has earned a rest from your activities. Life imprisonment, minimum of 30 years. At that time it was the longest sentence ever passed at the Old Bailey for murder. The untouchables, they'd been touched. As they go down to the cells, only their brother Charlie looks back at the gallery. The reign of the firm is over. The legend pivot, myth versus reality. History, well, it loves a Robin Hood, doesn't it? We see the Tom Hardy movies, we see the David Bailey photos, we think gentlemen gangsters, we hear the stories about how they kept the streets safe and loved their mum. That is the myth. The archive reality in those CRIM files is much uglier. They weren't protectors, they were predators. They exploited their own neighbours through protection rackets. They didn't have a code, they had a psychiatric pharmacy. Their legacy isn't East End pride, it's excessive and gratuitous violence. In 1975, there was this parliamentary debate. They used the Kray name as a metaphor for ruthless organisation. They'd become a national touchstone for fear. Even in prison, the brand survived. In '85, officials at Broadmoor found Ronnie was running Krays Enterprises, a bodyguard business. Frank Sinatra reportedly hired 18 bodyguards from him for a visit to Wimbledon. They were legends, yeah, but legends built on the silence of the dead. Ronnie died in Broadmoor in '95, 61 years old. His heart failed while he was listening to opera and dreaming of Genghis Khan. Reggie became a born-again Christian. He wrote poems about Francis. He was released on compassionate grounds in 2000, only to die of bladder cancer 5 weeks later in a hotel suite. They were buried in Chingford Mount. Thousands of people lined the streets to applaud. They applauded the myth, but the archives remembered a cyanide, they remembered a crossbow, they remembered the eiderdown in the Channel. The firm is gone, the archive is open, and those best years of their lives, they were nothing but a 39-day silence in court number 1. The Old Bailey Archives, case closed.